They won't say, "I'm losing control over you," but you'll feel it through words that seem harmless yet are laced with manipulation, threats, and desperation. When a narcissist senses they're no longer in control of the relationship, they don't beg you to stay. They make you question yourself, and that's when you need to wake up. In today's video, we'll expose 10 seemingly innocent phrases that are actually clear signs. The narcissist is panicking. Each statement is a calculated strategy to pull you back into their web of control, and if you don't recognize it in time, you'll find yourself sinking into guilt, confusion, and self-doubt. If you've ever experienced psychological manipulation, or if you're on a healing journey after a toxic relationship, this video is for you. Hit subscribe to join us in reclaiming your personal power. And don't skip a second, because at the end, I'll reveal how to respond in a way that makes the narcissist lose their grip on you completely. Remember this: you are not alone, and you deserve a life of freedom and wholeness. 1. You're not as innocent as you look, a reflection of a collapsing ego. When a narcissist begins to lose control over you, they will never admit it. They won't say, "I'm scared because you don't need me anymore." Instead, they reach for their most familiar weapon, verbal manipulation. And one of their sharpest, most frequently used lines is, "You're not as innocent as you look." At first glance, it might sound like a mild accusation, but beneath the surface lies a profound projection of a fractured ego. That statement isn't meant to uncover the truth. It's meant to sow doubt. The narcissist knows that once you begin to awaken, when you stop explaining, stop justifying, and start holding your calm like a quiet declaration, they begin to lose power. And to them, that's a devastating blow to an identity built on controlling others. The phrase, "you're not as innocent as you think," is, in truth, a form of projection, one of the narcissist's most common tactics. They take what's happening inside themselves, the fear of being exposed, the inauthenticity, the role-playing, and reflect it onto you. They do it with such mastery that if you're not grounded enough, you might actually start to wonder, am I pretending? Am I really as good as I believe I am? But here's the truth you must remember. You're not the one wearing the mask. They are. The narcissist has worn it for so long they've forgotten what's underneath. They can play any role: pitiful victim, heroic savior, the one who understands you better than anyone in the world, all to maintain control. And when you start to see through that, when you stop reacting and start observing, to them, it's a loss of control so severe it feels like collapse. When you stop defending yourself, stop arguing, stop trying to prove your innocence, you're no longer playing by the rules. They're used to a version of you that always reacts, always tries to be understood, always fears being misjudged. But now, your silence isn't weakness, it's awareness. And to a narcissist, that's more threatening than any verbal confrontation. That's when they'll shoot the poisoned arrow. You're not so innocent. What's the goal? To knock you off your centered mind, to drag you back into self-doubt, to force you to prove you're still the good one. But don't fall into the trap. They don't care about the truth. They only care about pulling you back into the role where your emotions are theirs to control. That phrase is also a sign of fear. Fear that you're finally seeing the face behind the mask. And in their distorted inner world, where appearances matter more than reality, being seen is the ultimate threat. They're not afraid of losing you as a person. They're afraid of losing the role through which they manipulated you. Understand this. Your silence is not avoidance. It is transformation. When you stop reacting, you're no longer a character in their script. You step off the stage they built and into the light of truth, where you see them, and more importantly, you see yourself more clearly than ever. When the narcissist says, "You're not so pure yourself," they are speaking to themselves. They are trying to project the darkness of their own mind onto you. They are scrambling to raise the curtain again, so you won't see what's being revealed behind the mask. But remember, you have no obligation to prove anything to someone who constantly denies reality. If you feel attacked by that statement, ask yourself, am I truly living without pretense? Am I being honest with myself? If your answer is yes, then that accusation is nothing but smoke. Truth does not need to be shouted, it only needs to be lived, and that's exactly what you're doing. Your calmness is the clearest proof of the truth they cannot bear. You don't need to say much to reveal the truth. You only need to stand firm. And finally, remember this. When they start saying things like this, it means they know they are losing control. And that, my friend, is a victory. Not loud, not chaotic, but immensely powerful. A victory that arises from the freedom within your own mind. 2. You're starting to act cold, just like them. When the narcissist reacts to your awakening, don't be fooled by the surface of this statement. You're starting to act cold just like them is not an innocent remark. It's a veiled message of panic. Narcissists don't handle truth well, and when you begin to change, when you grow stronger, calmer, and no longer react to their provocations, they begin to tremble in silence. But instead of admitting their fear, they disguise it in a moral-sounding critique. You're changing and you're becoming cold. To them, your transformation isn't growth. It's betrayal. Why? Because you're no longer playing the old role, the vulnerable one, the people pleaser, the person chasing after their moods and words to keep a fragile peace in the relationship. Now you no longer react like before. You're no longer disturbed by their passive-aggressive punishments, no longer needing validation from someone who never truly saw you. And that threatens them. Narcissists need you to stay reactive, reacting to their mind games, their silence, their sarcasm, their calculated indifference. But when you withdraw your energy, when you stop reacting and start observing, they begin to realize they no longer control your emotions. So they say, you're becoming cold. But what they're really saying is, I don't know how to manipulate you anymore. This statement is often accompanied by a toxic comparison, just like them. Someone from their past they couldn't control. Maybe it's an ex, a sibling, or even a parent. Narcissists often mention past relationships bitterly, not to share, but to warn. They paint a mirror. If you become like the one who left, then you are the next betrayer. And to them, that's unforgivable. But look closer at the truth. The one they couldn't control in the past was the one who saw through them. And now they see you beginning to open your eyes. You're thinking for yourself, recognizing the manipulation, setting boundaries you once feared to even consider. You no longer run after them explaining, that's not what I meant, or you misunderstood me. Now you simply stay quiet and steady. And that calmness drives the narcissist mad. They can't survive in stillness. They need chaos to feel alive. In their disordered inner world, silence is a kind of power they can't stand. It forces them to hear the echoes of their own empty soul, and that terrifies them. So they must break the silence. And the fastest way is to make you feel guilty. You've changed. You're not the same anymore. You're just like them. These aren't words of concern. They're strategies to pull you back into the old script. They don't want you to become yourself. They want you to return to the role they wrote for you from the beginning. Sadly, many people, after hearing words like these, start to doubt themselves. They fear they're actually becoming cold. They feel guilty for setting boundaries. They begin to apologize for becoming stronger. And that is the narcissist's ultimate victory, if you're not aware. You must understand this. Not reacting emotionally doesn't mean you're cold. It means you've matured. You've learned to control your reflexes, to stop letting your emotions be pulled like strings. You're reclaiming sovereignty over your mind, and that is a sign of strength, not indifference. A narcissist will always see your growth through the lens of betrayal because they never truly wanted you to grow. They wanted you small, dependent, always needing them to feel complete. But you don't need that anymore. If you're being accused of becoming like someone who once left them, ask yourself, did that person leave because they woke up? Were they someone who reclaimed their identity? If the answer is yes, then don't be afraid of the comparison. Be proud, because you're walking the same path of freedom and awakening. Always remember this. When a narcissist says you've changed, what they're really saying is you're no longer easy to control. And that is the clearest sign you are moving in the right direction. 3. Don't forget who you were before you met me. When the past becomes a chain money, a narcissist doesn't just manipulate your present emotions. They reach back to the place where you were most vulnerable, your past, and they do it with unsettling precision, using a phrase that sounds simple but cuts deep. Don't forget who you were before me. This isn't a reminder meant to inspire gratitude. It's not an act of sincerity. It's a veiled warning. a desperate attempt to dim the growing light within you. In the beginning, the narcissist often plays the role of the savior. They approach you when you're hurt, lost, or standing at a major crossroads in life. They show up as a blessing, helping, listening, supporting. But don't be fooled, this isn't unconditional love. Everything they do is carefully logged in an invisible debt ledger you never knew existed. And then one day, when you start to grow, become independent, and stop being as obedient as you once were, they pull out that ledger and say, "Without me, you'd be nothing." That phrase, "Don't forget who you were before me," is their invisible chain, a tool to bind you to a past they invaded, claimed, and now try to define as their personal achievement. But here's the truth. They didn't heal you. You healed yourself, whether they were present or not. If they were there while you were in pain, it doesn't mean they were the reason you recovered. They were simply bystanders to your rebirth, and when your light began to shine, they rushed in to claim the spotlight. A narcissist never wants you to feel strong and independent, because when you believe in your own power, you stop needing them. And a narcissist with a fragile, wounded ego can't tolerate the idea of not being the center of your universe. So they choose to diminish you, not by yelling, but with something more insidious, by reminding you of who you used to be. They want you to forget the road you've traveled, forget the nights you cried alone and wiped your own tears, forget how many times you got back up when no one else was there to lift you. They want you to see only the trembling version of yourself in the mirror, so you'll feel grateful to them, even though they never truly saved you. The cruelty lies in this. They don't use your past to inspire you, they use it to imprison you. They don't say, "You've always been strong." They say, "You were broken, and without me, you still would be." They don't want you to move forward. They want you to live stuck in the pain as a constant reminder that you owe me. And so an emotional debt is born. You begin to feel guilty for wanting to leave. You feel ungrateful for seeking your own happiness. You delay your life's turning points out of fear that you'll betray the one who was there when no one else was. But ask yourself this, were they there for you or for the power they felt being needed? Someone who truly loves you will celebrate your growth. They'll lift you up and step back when you're ready to soar. They don't need credit. But a narcissist is different. They don't give you wings. They give you a leash, tie it to your wrist, and call it gratitude. And so they remind you of everything. The time they helped you through a crisis, the financial support, the hours spent listening to you, even just being there. They turn every one of those moments into cards they play to make you choose between gratitude and freedom. But you know what? True gratitude never demands you sacrifice your right to live your own life. The phrase, "Don't forget who you were before me," may sound like a reminder, but in truth, it's a denial of your evolution. They don't want you to be proud of who you've become. They want you to bow to them for it. And that's a clear sign. They are afraid you'll realize you deserve better, afraid you'll look back and see that what they called help was actually control, afraid you'll remember that it was you, through courage, resilience, and an unyielding will to live, who rebuilt your life, no one else. So the next time someone says that to you, smile gently and answer in your heart, "I know who I am, before, during, and after you, and I will keep moving forward, not because I've forgotten the past, but because I've overcome it." 4. I'm still the one who understands you best. When possession disguises itself as understanding. Some words sound sweet, even intimate, but underneath, they carry an invisible web of control. One of those phrases, seemingly a testament to closeness, is actually one of the most dangerous forms of emotional bondage a narcissist can use. I'm still the one who understands you best. It sounds like a declaration of deep love, but look closer. There's no empathy, no recognition of your individuality, and certainly no freedom. It is a claim of ownership, wrapped in gentleness, because when a narcissist says they understand you best, they're not speaking about you. They're speaking about their ownership of you. They don't care about your true self. They care about the image of you that exists in their mind, an image they've constructed, edited, and distorted to fit the role they needed you to play in their life. A narcissist doesn't understand you the way someone who loves you does, through listening, presence, and the acceptance that you are your own person with the right to evolve. No, they understand you the way a behavioral analyst studies patterns. They memorize your triggers, your fears, your unresolved wounds, not to soothe them, but to keep control over you. When they say they understand you best, what they're really saying is, I've studied you enough to know exactly which buttons to push to get what I want. And behind that statement lies a deeply manipulative psychological tactic, making you doubt anyone who comes after them. When you start forming new relationships, be it friends, colleagues, or a romantic partner, that phrase will echo in your mind like a curse. No one will ever understand you like I do. And if you're not fully awake, you might start to believe it. You might think that no one else can truly get you, that the relationship with the narcissist, though painful, controlling, and full of loss, was the most deep connection you've ever had. You begin to undervalue new connections, question your worth, and worst of all, isolate yourself from those who could actually help you heal. And that is exactly their goal. Because if you believe only they understand you, you'll return, whether in thought, emotion, or action. A part of you will always return to that familiar place where you were never free, yet somehow believed it was the only place you were seen. But pause and ask yourself, if they truly understood you, why did you feel so alone in that relationship? If they truly empathized, why did you always have to explain, defend, and endure being invalidated? If they knew you so well, why was your heart always unsettled? The answer is clear. It wasn't understanding. It was manipulation. Narcissists use understanding as a weapon of control. They remember things not to love you, but to shape you. They don't learn how to feel with you. They learn how to pull your emotional strings to keep you obedient. And worse still, they use that knowledge to stop you from exploring who you are in the new chapters of your life. When you begin to change, they'll say, this isn't you. When you set boundaries, they'll say, I know you. You're not like this. When you go quiet to heal, they'll suspect someone must be influencing you. Each line serves the same goal, to freeze you in place, to keep you stuck in the version of yourself they once controlled. Because if you dare to evolve, dare to redefine yourself, dare to break out of the mold, they lose their grip on you. And that terrifies them. A person who truly loves you will say, I don't know everything about you, but I want to discover it with you. Someone who truly loves understands that being human is a process, not a fixed state. They will never use your past to cage you. They will never claim ownership of your heart or soul. They will allow you to grow and still love you as you change. But a narcissist, they love the version of you they can control, and they fear anything that steps outside that box. So if one day someone tells you, only I understand you, smile gently and answer silently in your heart, maybe you once understood me, but I am no longer the person you used to know. I'm evolving, and no one gets to own that but me. Because in the end, true understanding doesn't imprison, it liberates. 5. What are you trying to prove? When your confidence threatens the manipulator's power structure. When a narcissist sees you begin to change, not through blame or anger, but through quiet strength, they won't sit back and accept it. They'll react, but not like an emotionally mature adult, not through open dialogue. Instead, they'll hurl a question that sounds harmless but cuts deep, designed with a hidden agenda. What are you trying to prove? At first, it might sound like concern, as if they're curious about your motives. But let's be honest, they're not seeking an answer. What they're doing is planting a seed of doubt. Someone who's just beginning to step out of the darkness, to set boundaries, to stand up after years of self-doubt, can easily be shaken by questions like this. This question doesn't come from curiosity. It comes from fear of losing control. In your relationship with the narcissist, they've grown accustomed to you lowering your voice, apologizing, and constantly pleasing them to avoid conflict. Now, as you carry yourself with a new energy, calm, clear, no longer seeking their validation, they panic. And their instinctive response is to assign your transformation a false motive. They want to reduce your confidence to a performance. They can't believe you've genuinely changed. Because if you have changed, that means they no longer get to define who you are. It means you've stepped outside of their control. And for a narcissist, that is the ultimate nightmare. When you start dressing differently, speaking more clearly, explaining less, daring to say no, they won't celebrate your growth. They won't admire your maturity. Instead, they'll give you a skeptical look and say, "Who are you trying to impress? Who's even watching?" That question isn't just criticism, it's a stab at your self-worth. It implies that you're not real, that you're putting on a show, that your newfound strength is fake. And if you're not grounded enough, you may start to question yourself. Am I just pretending? Am I becoming arrogant? Do I need to tone it down so they don't feel threatened? And that is the trap. The moment you begin to shrink to avoid being seen as trying too hard, you fall right back into the old place, where you were small, predictable, and easy to control. The narcissist doesn't need to yell or scold. All they need is to plant just the right seed of doubt, and you'll begin clipping your own wings. But here's what you must remember. You don't have to prove anything. You're simply being who you are. If in the past you kept quiet to avoid conflict and now you speak up, not to fight, but to protect yourself, that's not aggression, that's healing. If before you constantly apologize for making others uncomfortable, and now you set boundaries, not to reject, but to preserve your peace, that's not coldness, that's self-respect. The question, "What are you trying to prove?" is really a form of devaluation, because the narcissist cannot accept the idea that you've grown without them. In their mind, you're just an extension of their ego, a psychological possession they control. When you start to function independently, love yourself, and move freely, they feel like they're losing part of themselves. And to hold on, they use the simplest tactic: make you question the light that's starting to shine within. But you don't owe them an answer, because you're not trying to prove anything to anyone. You're just living the truth you once buried out of fear. You don't need an audience, applause, or praise. What you need is honesty with yourself. When people can no longer control you, they try to make you believe you're wrong. And that's how you'll know you're on the right path. So instead of asking yourself, what am I trying to prove? Ask gently, am I living closer to my true self? If the answer is yes, then you owe no one an explanation. You don't need permission to be strong. Keep going, even if they call you fake, dramatic, or say you're just putting on a show, because the truth is they're not angry that you're fake. They're angry that you're no longer weak. 6. How long can you live without me? When the manipulator refuses to accept your freedom of friends. When a narcissist senses that you are truly stepping out of their sphere of influence, they don't quietly let go. They don't mourn your departure like someone who truly loves, with sincerity, a late apology, or heartfelt sadness. No. A narcissist responds with the weapon they've sharpened throughout the relationship, words designed to humiliate, veiled in sarcasm, indifference, or even humor. And one of the most dangerous phrases they can use is, "How long can you live without me?" Don't be fooled by the teasing tone. This is no joke. It's a direct strike at your self-worth and the budding independence you've only just begun to nurture. It isn't concern. It's an attempt to replant the seed of fear that once made you so dependent on them. When you begin walking on your own 2 feet, even if they tremble, even if your steps aren't perfect, that to them is unacceptable. Because for as long as you were in their orbit, they had been quietly constructing a system of dependency, emotionally, financially, mentally, even down to your belief in yourself. A narcissist doesn't need you to love them. They need you to believe you can't live without them. They need you to think that without them, you'll be lost, broken, helpless. And the painful truth is, for a time, they succeeded. They helped you just enough to make you feel indebted, but never enough for you to stand tall. They gave compliments, only when you complied, only when you fit the role they needed you to play. They made you believe no one else would understand, accept, or tolerate you like they did. And so, despite the pain, you stayed. Despite the exhaustion, you returned. Despite the longing for freedom, you feared the leap. Until one day, you finally dared to step out. And in that moment, the narcissist felt like they were losing their most prized possession, the ability to define who you are. They can't bear your silence. They can't handle your steady gaze, your smile that no longer seeks approval. So they lash out with a line dripping in contempt. How long can you survive without me? It sounds like mockery, but in reality, it reveals a deep inner fear. The truth is, they are the ones who can't live without someone to cling to. They need a mirror, someone to manipulate, to fill their void, to constantly validate their illusion of power. Without you, they're left facing themselves. And that's something they never want to do, but they'll never admit it. Instead, they strike you with the very insecurities they once planted in you. That phrase isn't a prediction. It's a dark spell designed to awaken old fears. Am I strong enough? Will I make it? What if I end up going back? And if you're still in the early stages of breaking free, that question can shake you. You might remember the times they were there in your struggle. You might recall the false sense of safety they offered. You might believe you once needed them to survive. But here's what you must know. They didn't give you your strength. They only hid the truth that it was always yours. That phrase is nothing but projection. It is they who can't survive without someone to latch onto. It is they who fear loneliness so much they wear a mask of love to keep you close. And now that you no longer react, now that you don't tremble in the silence, they are disoriented. Their ego can't handle the truth. You're not just surviving without them, you're thriving. And that terrifies them. So if you ever hear that line, don't argue, don't explain, don't turn back to prove anything. Let your calm, your strength, and your freedom be the answer. Every step away from them is a step closer to yourself. Every day you live outside the shadow of their manipulation is a day you breathe real air again. No one has the right to make you feel weak for choosing freedom. And if someone asks, how long can you live without me? Smile, say nothing, and keep living. Because it's in your silence that they begin to tremble. 7. You don't need to work so hard to make money when gentleness becomes an invisible handcuff. There are words that at first sound loving, generous, and full of care. I just want you to rest. You don't have to worry about money. I'll take care of everything. They sound sweet, like love, like responsibility. But in the hands of a narcissist, this kind of protection isn't love, it's a strategy. And then one day, they say, you don't need to work so hard to make money. It sounds like they're easing your burden. But if you pay attention, you'll see behind that phrase lies a system of hidden control. It's not encouragement for you to live more gently. It's the start of a process designed to strip you of autonomy. Because money is freedom. Money is choice. Money is the ability to walk away when a situation becomes unsafe. Money is power to exit a toxic relationship if needed. Narcissists know this, and they fear it. They're afraid that if you make your own money, you'll see their true value, or more precisely, the lack of it they've been working so hard to conceal. They're afraid you'll begin to ask, if I can be financially independent, what do I even need them for? They're afraid you'll leave, that you'll walk away from the gilded cage made of loving words that on the inside are coated with conditions. So no, they don't stop you with force. They stop you with distorted affection. I can take care of us both. A woman shouldn't have to worry about money. It hurts me to see you work so hard. The narcissist doesn't mind your comfort. They mind your freedom of choice, because a person with choices cannot be controlled. At first, you may feel grateful. They pay the bills, cover meals, support everything. It feels like relief. But over time, you start to notice what once felt like generosity becomes invisible debt. You buy something small, they say, why are you being so wasteful? You mention a business idea, they smile, let's be realistic. You say you want to work again, they frown, wouldn't it be easier just to stay home? And slowly, you stop spending. Stop dreaming big, stop imagining independence, stop making decisions because everything must now go through them. This is emotional abuse through financial control. No shouting, no demands, just a slow conditioning until you believe, I don't need to earn money because I already have them. And when you believe that, you've unknowingly handed over the keys to your freedom. The scariest part, you don't realize your power is being taken because it's wrapped in love, in sacrifice, in security. And then one day, you find yourself trapped by comfort. You want to go to work, but fear they'll be upset. You have a dream, but fear being mocked. You want to save your own money, but feel guilty. You say you want to be independent, and they respond with a disappointed gaze. I've done everything for you, and you're still not satisfied? So you back down. You stay silent. You remain not out of love, but out of obligation. And that sense of debt is the narcissist's favorite weapon. You must understand this. Someone who truly loves you wants to see you strong, not dependent. They want you free, not indebted. They rejoice when you earn for yourself, not feel threatened. They're not afraid of you leaving because if the love is real, you'll always stay by choice. But a narcissist doesn't understand that. To them, love is possession. It's control without chains, because the chain is psychological. So when they say, you don't need to work so hard to make money, don't listen with your heart. Listen with awareness. Look closely at what role you're being cast into. Are you being cared for, or are you being limited? You have the right to dream, the right to work, the right to earn and spend according to your own values. No one has the right to use love to make you powerless. And if someone ever makes you feel guilty just because you want independence, remember this: independence is not betrayal. It is the highest expression of self-respect. 8. I know you're hiding something. When your silence drives them mad. A narcissist cannot tolerate silence, not because they value connection, but because they fear losing control. To them, a relationship isn't a space for understanding or sharing. It's a psychological chess game where they must see every one of your moves to stay ahead. So when you begin to keep your thoughts to yourself, when you no longer react the way you used to, no longer explain every feeling or action, they start to feel insecure. And in their panic, they say, I know you're hiding something. This isn't a reflection of truth. It's a reflection of their fear of losing control. For a narcissist, your clarity doesn't matter as much as their need to be one step ahead. As long as you're sharing, even if it's pain or confusion, they still have access to manipulate. But when you step back, stay calm, and no longer expose everything, they begin to feel shut out. And to them, that feels like humiliation. Don't confuse that phrase with genuine concern. They're not afraid that you're hurting. They're afraid that you're awakening, afraid you're beginning to see their true face, afraid you're questioning they once said, promised, or manipulated. And instead of asking, are you okay? They choose psychological warfare. You're hiding something, aren't you? The truth is, you don't need to be hiding anything to make a narcissist panic. Just not reacting as you once did, not falling apart at their games, not seeking their validation anymore. That alone is enough to trigger their paranoia. Because in the mind of a narcissist, everyone has a hidden motive. Everyone's doing something behind the scenes. Why? Because that's how they operate, where love is control, care is a leash, and listening is a way to collect your weaknesses. So when you go quiet, they don't see peace, they see a threat, and their imagination runs wild. Who are you talking to? Are you planning to leave? Are you trying to escape me? Their mind cannot cope with empty space, because space is where truth has room to grow, and that is their greatest fear. Your silence, once dismissed as weakness, now becomes the very thing that disorients them. They can no longer read you. They don't know what you're thinking, feeling, wanting. And that loss of control sends them spiraling. Not because they're worried about your well-being, but because they can no longer predict and manipulate your emotions. So when they say, I know you're hiding something, what they're really saying is, I've lost the key to your emotions. But instead of admitting that, they twist it into your problem. They don't say, I don't understand you anymore. They say, you're being shady. It's verbal manipulation, turning their loss of control into your supposed lack of transparency. And if you're not grounded, you may fall into their trap. You start to explain. You feel guilty for keeping a little peace to yourself. You feel like you have to open up to prove you're not doing anything wrong. And the moment you do, they regain access to the inner world you were just beginning to rebuild. Don't do it. Remember this, you don't owe anyone absolute emotional transparency, especially not someone who has misused your vulnerability. You have the right to keep your peace, the right not to explain, the right to hold sacred things within that no one else can touch. Because not all openness is healthy, especially when the other person doesn't use understanding to love, but to control. Someone who truly loves you will never distrust your silence. They'll honor it as part of who you are. They'll know that sometimes silence isn't deceit, it's a phase of healing. But a narcissist sees your silence as a challenge because they've grown used to your reactions, your anxiety, your efforts to please. Now you don't do that anymore, and they're afraid. Not afraid of losing you, but of losing the power to define you. So when they say, I know you're hiding something, smile in your heart. and respond with silence. No reaction, no panic, no explanation, because you don't owe clarity to someone who was never clear with you. Your silence is not guilt. It is the safety wall you've built after being shattered too many times. And the most beautiful part is you no longer have to break that wall just to make someone else comfortable. 9. This isn't the real you. Someone must have changed you. When the manipulator can't accept your awakening, one thing a narcissist can never tolerate is a transformation that isn't part of their plan, especially when you begin to awaken. See them clearly and dare to step out of the sweet but suffocating cage they built for you. That's when they launch one of their oldest and most manipulative tactics to pull you back. This isn't you. Someone's poisoning your mind. They'll never say, "I see you're becoming freer, stronger." They'll never admit, "I'm afraid I'm losing my power over you." Instead, they deflect blame, denying your growth by insisting that your change isn't real. It must have come from someone else who ruined you. In the narcissist's mind, you're never allowed to have your own identity. They are the author of your life story, deciding who you are, what you think, how you feel, and what you should believe. So when you start stepping out of the script they wrote, they panic. But their panic doesn't show as fear, it's disguised as anger, accusations, and painful, threatening stares. The phrase, "you're not yourself anymore," is not about concern. It's a subtle form of gaslighting. They're not just denying who you are today, they're trying to make you doubt your own growth and awareness. You start setting boundaries. They say, "You were never this cold before." You stop reacting emotionally. They say, "You feel like a stranger." You stop getting hurt by their sarcasm. They ask suspiciously, "Who's been putting thoughts in your head?" And suddenly you start to hesitate. You ask yourself, "Am I becoming too harsh? Have I changed for the worse?" That's exactly what they want, to drag you back into the version of you they could control. They don't need you to be perfect. They just need you to be predictable, pliable, and guilty for no longer being who you used to be. But here's the truth. You're not being poisoned. You're finally being detoxed. No one changed you. You're just finally returning to yourself. The narcissist is afraid that you're seeing them more clearly, but what terrifies them even more is that you're beginning to see yourself more clearly. Because once you realize you have the right to think differently, feel differently, and live differently, you'll no longer stay in the role they assigned you. And when they sense that, they'll start naming the imaginary villains. It might be your new friend, your therapist, a video you watched, or even your own mother. Anyone who contributed to your awakening is cast as the enemy. Because if someone else is blamed for turning you against them, they don't have to take responsibility. And if you believe it, you'll return. You'll apologize for being influenced. You'll try to start over. But don't forget, they're not afraid of losing you. They're afraid of losing the version of you they could manipulate. The version that's agreeable, the version that always says sorry, the version that feels guilty when others are upset, the version that tries to fix everything, even the things you didn't break. So when they say someone's changing you, ask yourself instead, or maybe, "I'm just remembering who I am." Growth always makes people uncomfortable, especially those who benefited from your naivety. And a narcissist whose identity depends on emotional dominance can't bear it. They don't just want your love, they want your dependence, because only then do they feel valuable. So when you begin to feel whole without them, they feel threatened, and they will do everything they can to make you question that freedom. The phrase, "you've changed," isn't truth, it's a tactic, a strategy to make you shrink. They don't want you to expand, they don't want you to become clear, they don't want you to live without them at the center, because in their eyes you are not truly you, you're just an extension of their ego. 10. You're always the one who ruins everything. The final blow from someone losing control of life. When all their manipulation tactics have failed, when sweet words, fake apologies, and even playing the victim no longer keep you hooked, a narcissist will unleash their final weapon, blaming everything on you. And it often comes in the form of a painfully familiar sentence. You're always the one who ruins everything. This is no longer subtle manipulation. This is a public verdict, a final strike delivered when they realize you've become too aware, too strong, and too far beyond their reach. They have nothing left to lose and nothing left to hide. So they turn sharply and lay every ounce of blame at your feet. You're selfish. You're too sensitive. You're never satisfied. And finally, with cold judgment, they declare, you're the one who broke everything. Why do they do this? Because they can't bear the truth. You're walking away and you don't feel sorry for it. They need a reason, and the easiest one will never be about them. In the twisted inner world of a narcissist, they are never at fault. They are never the one who caused harm. And if someone is hurting, it must be because they deserved it. So when you stop apologizing for things that aren't your fault, when you stop giving in just to keep the peace, when you refuse one final conversation that only leads back into the same old cycle, they snap. Not from heartbreak, but from the loss of power. And so they pin the blame on you for everything. It wasn't their control, it was your independence. It wasn't their silent punishment, it was your coldness. It wasn't their lies, it was your lack of understanding. The relationship didn't fall apart because of their toxicity. It's because you weren't patient, kind, or forgiving enough. The phrase, "you're always the one who ruins everything," isn't just denial. It's a final attempt to make you become the fixer again. They know that if they can make you feel guilty, you'll do the one thing they crave most. Come back and ask for forgiveness. Because once, you were that person. You used to be the one who tried to mend everything, the one afraid of causing pain, the one who took responsibility even for things beyond your control. And they knew that. They exploited it too many times. Now they're hoping that if they cast you as the destroyer, you'll soften, you'll retreat, you'll try to make it work again. But today, you're different. You've learned that not everyone who's angry with you deserves your peace offering, that not everyone who cries when you leave is crying from love, and that not every accusation deserves to land on your shoulders. Deep down, you didn't ruin anything. You simply refused to keep holding together something that was already falling apart. You didn't destroy the relationship. You just stopped accepting lies, neglect, and conditional love. You didn't hurt them. You only spoke the truth they refused to face. You weren't the storm. You were the first to walk out of it in order to save yourself. The truth is, if something can be broken by your boundary, your no, or your departure, then it was never truly safe or healthy enough to hold you. Real love doesn't crumble when you set boundaries or choose self-respect. So when they say you ruined everything, don't respond with arguments. Don't try to prove your innocence. Don't fall into the trap of self-doubt. Respond by living clearly, freely, without them. Sometimes the loudest, most powerful response is not a speech, but the radiant peace you carry when they no longer control your world. And if you've ever believed that you were the one who caused the damage, remember, true healing often begins only after you let something break. Don't fear being seen as the one who walked away. Don't fear being labeled as the destroyer, because sometimes you're simply the only one brave enough to stop something harmful. That's not failure. That's courage. That's the true beginning of your rebirth. And the heartbreaking truth is, if you're not awake, you'll fall back into that cycle. You'll try to be the old you again, even though that you lived in fear, tears, and constant self-betrayal. But now, you know better. That wasn't the real you. That was the manipulated version of you. And you're not changing to hurt anyone. You're changing to heal. So if someone says, you're not yourself anymore, smile gently and think, thank you. It took me far too long to come back to who I really am. In the end, what makes you strong is not that you stayed and endured, but that you dared to walk away to protect your soul. The words a narcissist hurls at you when they're losing control are not the truth. They are the cracks in their mask, the desperate cries of a power that no longer works. You are no longer the fragile version of yourself they once guided and manipulated. You've seen the truth, and once the light has been revealed, you can no longer go back to living in darkness. Everything they say, you're fake, you've changed, you're the one who ruined everything, says nothing about you. It reflects only one thing. They're panicking in front of the awakened, untouchable version of you. You don't need to react. You don't need to explain. You don't need to prove anything. Your calm, clear, and empowered presence is the most powerful answer. And if you are in the process of leaving a toxic relationship, remember this. Every step forward is a declaration of courage. Every moment of silence is a reclaiming of your mental sovereignty. Every time you say no, you are saying yes to your own life. You are not breaking anything. You are healing. You are not cold. You are learning how to love yourself properly. You are not abandoning anyone. You are finally returning to yourself. And if once their accusations, doubts, and blaming glances used to make you tremble, now you can hold your head high without needing anyone's permission, because you don't need forgiveness to live in truth. If what you've just heard made you feel seen, understood, and empowered, know this: you are not alone. Hit subscribe to this channel because here you'll always find a safe space for your journey of healing and rebirth. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new video where we expose manipulation, reclaim self-worth, and build a life where you no longer need anyone's permission to live fully. You are no longer a victim. You are a survivor. And most importantly, you are rewriting your own story.